Welcome, folks. I'm Jon Najarian. Just got a little too tied up yesterday, but I know Matt and CJ were able to do the job without me just tagging along. So great job, guys, as usual. Thank you. And CJ Reichel and Monty Matt Mayor are, I love moving the Matt around on that. It's either Matt Monty Mayor or Monty Matt Mayor. Anyway, folks, thanks for joining us. Those two guys are the guys that make the magic happen within the chat room that we have at Market Rebellion for crypto. We have, you can join, by the way, just for $1 for your first month. It's $1. You go to marketrebellion.com / is it Get Crypto, guys?
Try crypto.
Try crypto. Try crypto. Thank you. Marketrebellion.com / try crypto. I have a couple questions to ask you guys since you've been in this game longer than I have. And one of them is the moves to Tether. When you see USDC or any of these cryptos that are not Bitcoin, but seem to be a place where people go to hide. In other words, they have Bitcoin, they make a nice trade, they buy it at 48, sell it at 54, something like that maybe, and then they go to USDC. Do you see that happening a lot? Have you seen that ever since Tether and some of those so-called stable coins are out there? Do you see that happening a lot?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was the initial purpose of Tether, was to allow traders to go into an asset that would be stable like USD, but not create an actual taxable event. Now, in the United States, ever since those laws have changed, transferring out of Bitcoin into something like a stable coin is a taxable event. But the bonus of holding that stable coin now, like USDC at Voyager, is you get 9% interest on an annual basis. So if you're taking profit, it makes it a hell of a lot easier when you know you're getting a guaranteed 9% API. So, yeah. Yes.
So, which leads me to my next question then, because that all sounded logical, and indeed that is the way that I perceived it playing out, CJ. Matt, do you think then when we start seeing surges into Tether and other stable coins that it's a sign that Bitcoin can have a little, can extend the loss? Like we had that 10% drawdown the other day. When you look at the volume of Tether, it was picking up pretty substantially as Bitcoin's falling. So some of it is just as CJ said, because people are looking for a safe haven, but does that also accelerate perhaps the selling pressure on BTC when you see that happening?
Sure, John. And I think that's a large part of the reason we saw this kind of correction back down to 50K. And the timing makes sense when you consider the fact that we have a record amount of options expiring today. And I think the two metrics that are most important to look at are two very important metrics to look at. One we talked about yesterday is kind of the illiquidity measurement of people taking their Bitcoin off of spot exchanges and moving it into cold storage wallets where they're planning on holding it for the long term. And another metric to look at would be what John just mentioned, and that is inflows into Tether or other stable coins, because people tend to use those stable coins, like CJ said, as sort of a safe haven, but also as dry powder for future crypto purchases. So you're right, John, it can accelerate the kind of trip down. I think that's what we saw on the way down to 50K. But I think we're going to start seeing some of that Tether start flowing back into BTC today as the Bitcoin options expire. And while we're on the topic, I think we should transition to it because a lot of people have been asking questions about today's options expiries, and they're very important. So CJ, you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on today and kind of what this could potentially mean for Bitcoin given other historical instances of options expiration?
Yes, we should have a tweet from the Wolf of All Streets, Scott Melker. But as you said, Monty, a record 6 billion in Bitcoin options contracts expire today. The last 3 months, we've seen a price suppression going into these closes. Remember that option expiry is the last Friday of each month. And so we've seen price kind of suppressions going into that last Friday of each month. However, it's followed with price increases of 80, 99, and 44% in the last 3 months. And historically, April has been one of the most bullish months for Bitcoin. The question I want to ask Jon, and I wanted to ask you this yesterday, for the folks who don't know, why do you think that relationship exists where we see a price suppression going into the options expirations?
It's both a great question, and a lot of people have covered the options expiration and haven't really delved deep enough into it. So without going too deep, we're going to give you a much better idea right now, folks. These are not the options at the CME. No disrespect to them, but they trade this much of the, and I don't mean disrespect. I love those guys over there at the CME. A lot of my friends, both on the marketing side and the exchange side, as well as traders. But we're talking about Deribit in particular, probably the biggest exchange for derivatives on Bitcoin. When you're looking at those, they say that there are $6 billion worth of options on there. Now, if those options were purchased prior to some of the big run up, because just like CJ said, they expire every 3 months. So this is that third month, January, and then we get into this one, February. And I think, by the way, guys, they deal with something called like universal coordinated time or something, which might be similar to Greenwich Mean Time, but in plain English, they expired at 3 a.m. Eastern time today, those options, I believe. So in other words, 2 in the morning our time. So only one of those two guys was probably up at that time. And luckily I was sleeping. But that's when Deribit sets its expiration. So if you bought them, for instance, if you bought calls when it was 44,000 for Bitcoin, which you could have well done just over a month ago, now you're getting in here and selling, taking profits on those calls, which tends to be a downward pressure. It doesn't matter if it's a Bitcoin or if it's Apple. If you see a huge open interest at the, for instance, 125 strike, and we're going into expiration week and the stock's trading 127, a lot of us feel that so-called pin risk is that you're going to push that price down as the customers are getting out of the calls, in Apple in this case at 127. They're selling those calls for $2+ because it's worth 125. Stock's trading 127. They're worth at least 2 plus some premium. They're selling those out because they don't want to take shares of Apple. In the case of this one, we're talking about Bitcoin. They might not want to take a $55,000 asset. So they bought those options. Maybe they paid, again, let's use a $2 example. They paid $2, but because it went from 44 to 55 or higher, and they've been selling out now, depending what strike they have, maybe they're taking a nice profit of $3, $4, $5 or more on those. As they sell those, the market makers like CJ and Monty might be, not that they're market makers on Deribit, but they could be. Those market makers, when they get those calls, don't just hold on to them. They're arbing that against the Bitcoin itself. So in other words, pressure on the options puts pressure on Apple and puts pressure on Bitcoin. So that's why that $6 billion is a big deal. 6 billion would be a lot of Bitcoin coming on the market. And it tends to, push things down. If these were puts, it would tend to lift things up. By the way, our buddy at Fundstrat, who works with Tom Lee, and he's been on the show with Monty and CJ before, his name's David Greider. And he said, just as CJ cited, returns prior to Bitcoin options expiration dates have tended to be positive. The market is calm based on Bitcoin VIX falling with room to fall further. And so he's basically calling, just like you said, CJ, for a rally after this $6 billion of pressure comes off the market. And I believe, if I'm right about universal coordinated time, that pressure has ended already.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the response that we've seen in the market. We're green pretty much all around. But yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note the open interest by strike. I think that what you said, CJ, and what you just reiterated, John, that we tend to get a boom after that pressure is sort of lifted, is supported by this open interest that's heavily stacking up around 80K. I think that's a very bullish sign for people that are long Bitcoin going forward. So yeah, we're gonna have to watch this closely. I think a lot of the pressure has finally been lifted. So hopefully some of these assets can start to run. And
our mutual friend, by the way, Max Kaiser, his short-term target is 77. I know you guys know that. I'm just saying that for the viewers. 77K is Max Kaiser's short-term target. He's still calling for 220 by year end. And maybe he'll be right. I kind of chuckle when I say it, but Max has been a lot more right than he's been wrong, even on bearish markets about Bitcoin. And if you would have listened to Matt Kaiser, you'd be a much richer person.
Yeah, he's been in Bitcoin a long time. CJ, before the show started, you and I were talking about how we think that now that this pressure has sort of been lifted and people are making these expectations of a 77K price target, that not only Bitcoin would be a huge benefactor, a lot of alts that we've been talking about would also see some serious price action. So you want to, without further ado, get into your Doge of the day?
Yeah, I love these Doges of the day.
It's been a common theme that we've been talking about, as Bitcoin goes to new highs, if we can push that 60 level or even the 75K level that Max Kaiser brings up, alts are going to be carried very, very dramatically if we keep pushing those new highs as well, because speculators step in and it's a very risk-on environment. We've been talking about assets like VeChain, GLM, StormX, VGX. I think all of these are going to perform incredibly well if Bitcoin gets to new highs by next week. The one that I'll point out as my Doge of the day is going to be XMR. I like the chart formation. I like that we're seeing buy pressure come in, and we are seeing a nice little bump in volume too. So I'll be watching that one for the rest of the day. But with that being said, I'll pass it back to you, gentlemen.
XMR, all right. I'm checking it out right now to see where it's trading.
Yeah, XMR
looks like 223.80. So we're timestamped now. 223.80.
There you go.
It's basically unchanged over the last day. Cool.
Yeah. And I think that's a common theme with a lot of these altcoins that we're looking at as a potential big gainer over the next couple of weeks. Is kind of some consolidation over the last couple of weeks following that kind of run up we saw in the middle of February. And my asset, my Doge of the day, is one that kind of fits that pattern as well. And that is Engine. So Engine is one of those NFT plays that really saw a ton of positive price action in the middle of this month and at the very start of March. People really started to speculate on the NFT space and give it some attention. And then kind of when Bitcoin started to pull back, people started to take profits from Engine and Mana, and it started to trade sideways, very similar to the Monero chart that CJ just pointed out. And the reason why I like this trade here as a long trade, not only because I believe that it will go up when Bitcoin reaches all new all-time highs, but I think the technicals here are very sound. Has this TD support level here at 219, also the support level here just above $2. And then obviously the psychological support level of $2, which is very important for crypto assets. So I think this is well postured for entering a long trade right now. It's trading around 226, maybe a little bit higher since we started the show. But I think that this is an asset that could perform very well over the next couple of weeks.
And I'll throw out mine. That's ENJ, right?
Yes.
Okay, ENJ, $2.24 with a couple other digits at the end of that. I'm going to go with, guys, today, one that you've talked about before, both of you, Chainlink. It had a you know, it had been a $31 stock, 31.5 last Friday or Saturday. It bled all the way off to what was the low? The low here was about 24.70. And now it's on the way back up. I think it had a big surge in volume yesterday as it bottomed. And if Matt and CJ are right about how, you know, we typically see that pressure ease and perhaps Bitcoin makes that move, I think this one could make a $3 or $4 move pretty quick. So I'm buying Link, L-I-N-K today.
I like it. I like it. We've been talking a lot about Link. It has some great, not only technicals, but some fundamentals that are driving its value. So that's one that I've been holding for a while as well. I like that pick, John. But I think
Cool.
that is about all we have for today. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to Voyager for sponsoring this show, as always. And like we always close things up, CJ and I will be hanging out in the crypto room pretty much 24/7. It's the weekend, so come hang out. You can try it out for just $1 for the first month at marketrebellion.com/try crypto. It's just below me here. Go check it out. We have a pro charting service, community of very intelligent traders that's ever growing. And we publish weekly trade insights about some of these assets that we just talked about. So go check it out. Like I said, just $1 for the first month.
By the way, did you guys shoot Trade the Chain this week, or are you doing it today with Alex and those guys?
Yes, and Alex is going to be tuning in from Puerto Rico. And so, you know, gotta keep them focused.
Alex is with Quantrex, right?
Bquant.
Bquant, sorry. But that is always an interesting show, folks. I encourage you to check that one out too. If you liked some of the information you heard here, you're going to like both of these guys, CJ and Matt, along with Alex. And they have several guests. I forgot the other co-host of the show, guys.
Ryan Gorman.
Thank you.
Most popular.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here Monday.